Fed to create money. Your bank needs a loan, and it doesn't have quite enough reserves, so it has to, and it wants to loan more money out and so on. So what your bank does is in the morning call up the Fed officer and its regional bank loan officer and say, we need a loan of $50 million. Okay. At the end of the day, the Fed officer says, you have the loan. Now where's the money? All the Fed did was to go into the bank's reserve account, which is held at the regional Fed, and simply credit $50 million to that bank. There's no money, there's nothing you can see, there's no printing. The bank then has the right to create $50 million of new deposits and loan them out at interest. Okay. So that's how the Fed creates money. Now let me deal with another myth, and that is that the Fed is necessary to protect us from the horrors of deflation. Okay, I call this deflation phobia, and it has swept the Fed and academic economists since around 2000. Okay, and it was promoted by Alan Greenspan and Bernanke himself. They saw that prices were falling in Japan very modestly during the 1990s, and that Japan had, at the same time, a depression. So they mistook one for the cause of the other. Falling prices, we see, do not cause depression. Falling prices are a result of a healthy, growing, prospering economy, which we'll get to. So what happened in 2002, when Bernanke was just a governor of the Fed, he gave a talk that at first no one really paid attention to. He wasn't the Fed chairman, they really just paid attention to Greenspan, basically. But he gave a talk in November in Washington here, November 2002. It was called Deflation, Making Sure It Doesn't Happen Here. Okay. And it had to have been cleared by Greenspan, since he's the chairman of the Fed. And he began his speech by affirming the belief, quote, that the chance of significant deflation in the United States in the foreseeable future is extremely small. Okay? So then shut up and move on to something else. Then he expressed confidence that the Fed would take whatever means necessary to prevent significant deflation in the United States, and moreover that the U.S. Central Bank, in cooperation with other parts of the government as needed, has sufficient policy instruments to ensure that any deflation that might occur would be both mild and brief. So why should we worry about it? Well, he wanted you to worry about it, because this was setting the stage for an enormous inflation that caused the housing bubble, which I just talked about. He added, so having said that deflation in the United States is highly unlikely, and I'm quoting him, I would be imprudent to rule out the possibility altogether. So this is where he began to scare the American people. Well, he went through a whole list of different policy instruments which the Fed could use, unconventional instruments, which it is now using now. So in 2002, he was sending out the agenda for 2008. Okay? So the Fed could use these instruments, which is beyond regular open market operations, which I talked about, to stop deflation. And then he wrote the following. He said, the conclusion that deflation is always reversible under a fiat money system follows from basic economic reasoning. A little parable may prove useful. Today, an ounce of gold sells for $300, more or less. Okay, he wishes. That was back in 2002. As a result of his policies, it's now selling for $1,400. Now suppose that a modern alchemist solves his subject's oldest problem by finding a way to produce unlimited amounts of gold at essentially no cost. Moreover, his invention is widely publicized and scientifically verified. And he announces his intention to begin massive production of gold within days. What would happen to the price of gold? Bernanke asks. And he goes on to answer. He says, if there's a potentially unlimited supply of gold, its price would plunge. Okay. Immediately after the announcement. Now, he says, what does this have to do with monetary policy? He says, like gold, U.S. dollars have value only to the extent that they are strictly limited in supply. But the U.S. government has a technology called a printing press. Now, he understood that he wasn't just printing money. He says in parentheses, or today, its electronic equivalent, that allows it to produce as many U.S. dollars as it wishes at essentially no cost. It costs about 2 to 4 cents to print a new $100 bill. And just to create money in computers, almost nothing. By increasing the number of U.S. dollars in circulation, or even threatening to do so, the U.S. government can also reduce the value of dollars in terms of goods and services, which is equivalent to raising the prices in dollars of these goods and services. We conclude then, under a paper money system, a determined government can always generate higher spending and inflation. So what was he doing there? I mean, it's really a chilling passage. What he's telling us is that we're going to risk scaring people into spending money to raise prices by threatening to inflate the money supply. Okay? That way lies hyperinflation, which is exactly what they're doing now. Okay? By announcing that we're going to have QE2, quantitative easing 2, of $600 billion, announcing that in advance. Usually the Fed doesn't announce anything in advance. The Fed is very secretive. It releases its minutes months later. Okay, it only gives you, every time it meets the FOMC, it only gives you a very, very short press release. Okay? So why would he be announcing this? To scare you and me into fearing higher prices in the future and stampeding to buy things that we would need in the future, like homes, automobiles, so on, buy them now. Okay? And that's hyperinflation. Okay? But let me just sort of refute that. What's bad about falling prices? Okay? Is anyone worried about the fact that HD TVs are falling in price? iPhones? I love it. I want all prices to fall to a nickel. Okay? Because falling prices in a capitalist economy with a sound money like gold, which is what occurred from 1800 to 1913, means that goods are becoming more abundant. And that the increase in the money supply, in this case gold, is very, very slow. It's determined by costs of production and the demand for gold in industrial uses or in money. So, in fact, really falling prices or deflation is really an increase in the value of money. It's the dollar being able to buy more. Okay? So, for example, let's take the case of deflation in the high-tech industries. You could buy a mainframe computer from IBM, which would probably fill half this room, for $4.7 million in 1970. You could buy a computer today that's less than $500, and it's tiny, PC, that's more than 20 times, probably 50 times faster now. Okay, it has more memory than that computer. Prices have fallen by 90% overall in those industries. Okay? Now, has that destroyed the computer industry? Has that caused massive unemployment? No. In 1980, for example, 490,000 PCs were shipped, less than 500,000. By the year 2000, 43 million units were shipped. Okay? In the meantime, prices have fallen by 90%. When there is growth, and as a result of technological improvement, a capitalist economy, the fact that people save and invest more, what you get is falling prices and falling costs. So the profit margin doesn't change. Prices and costs fall. So you do not get depression. Deflation does not cause depression. Deflation is evidence of a prospering economy, a growing economy. Okay. There's a few other things I could say, but maybe I'll just say one other thing about QE2, and then I'll stop and I'll take questions. So the Fed had claims that quantitative easing is necessary, which is another word for inflation, to restart our economy. Okay? So we had quantitative easing from 2009 to 2008 to about 2010, the first round of quantitative easing. It increased bank reserves by about $1.4 trillion. Okay? Unemployment stayed above 9%. Now we have the second round, announced in November. Another $600 billion in quantitative easing. Which, remember, when it gets into circulation, is going to be multiplied by up to 10 times. Okay? Causing a massive inflation in the U.S. economy. What has resulted? I did some quick calculations very quickly. What did we see in the last few months? We've seen purchase of long-term Treasury securities rising, which was basically quantitative easing was supposed to push the interest rates down, which it did for a while, but now as people expect inflation, they've risen from around 2.5% to 3.5% in the last year. That is the interest rates on 10-year bonds. We've seen mortgage rates going up. Mortgage rates hit a low of 4.25% last year. Now they just went over 5%, the average 30-year mortgage. I read that in the paper yesterday. Commodity prices have risen by 23% in the last year. Cotton prices have hit their highest nominal value since the Civil War. In the last 2 years, the Fed has reignited the stock market boom. It's increased by 84%, okay, in 2 years. So what's the solution? Solution, outside of the initial step of auditing the Fed, to find out how cozy they were with all of these firms they bailed out, and whether or not they knowingly overpaid for the assets that they bought, and if they did, how much is this going to cost taxpayers in losses? Okay. We want to know all of those things. That's what an audit would do. But the ultimate solution is to abolish the Fed. And do that. Corrupt, secretive organization that has no place in a republic. So how do we abolish it? We take 2 steps. One, we allow alternative currencies to develop. Abolish all taxes, excise, sales, capital gains taxes on gold and silver. Abolish all legal tender laws and allow people their God-given right of making contracts in whatever medium they agree upon. And very importantly, allow gold and silver deposits and foreign currency deposits. Let's allow Americans to hold yen checking accounts and yuan checking accounts. Let's see China and Japan outcompete the US dollar, is showing what a rotten system we have. And make it illegal for the Fed to purchase any more assets. No more buying bonds, mortgages, my SUV, nothing. Okay? Because if you do that, they can't create any money. Also, they can loan banks money. Well, raise the rate to 10% or 12% so that the banks have no incentive to borrow anymore from the Fed. Okay? Then Bernanke can just sit there and twiddle his thumbs. And then force them, since the banks are holding so many excess reserves, we have actually enough reserves in the system to back up every dollar of checking account money by 100%. Okay? So let's go back to 100% banking. After that, we can go back and see if people prefer gold, silver, or another currency. Okay? So that's what I would, that's my solution to the problem. Okay, so I'll end here and take questions. Thank you.